Welcome to Slow Fashion Talks, where fashion meets circularity.
Welcome to Slow Fashion Talks. I'm your host, Edward Veem, and I'm here today with Titiyo, a prominent Swedish artist, and you've probably heard her music. Come along with me is a line that it sticks to your head. She's won over 4 Grammys and written 7 albums.
7 maybe.
That I think is right. Thank you, Lou Dog, for the
That's
little
ridiculous.
hand
And all those years, and I haven't released more than that.
But and we'll get into that because it's a process. It's a creative process. But we're here today to talk about sustainability, circularity, and fashion. Slow Fashion Talks is a platform where we want to encourage our behaviors to shift towards circularity, where like our pieces of clothing can be shared. It can be an infinite wardrobe is the idea. So when I get tired of a piece of clothing, I can go on the platform and I can sell it, and it finds a new home, a new body to make look gorgeous. And Titiyo, we're very happy to have you here today. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And how this happened is on the last episode we were talking to Lullabies, and we asked him at the end of the show, like, who do you think should come on the podcast? And he said quite confidently, like, Titiyo. And I can understand why. Like, me doing some of the research,
Right.
like, I think fashion, and also like fashion is interesting because it kind of takes a long time to understand it. At first you think, oh, I want to buy clothes that kind of look like everybody else's clothes as you're growing up. Like, I want to be a part of the group.
True.
But I think with some maturity and age, you're like, how can I express myself with clothes? And I feel like that's what Lars Wallin was speaking about when he said Titiyo, and we should have you on the show.
Right.
So how do you relate to fashion? How do you think about fashion? And what's fashion to you?
Well, it goes 2 ways. I think you love it and you're addicted, and at the same time you kind of resent it. I mean, it's a big business, and it's all about yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ego involved in fashion, seriously. But still, as you said, it's an expression and it's very personal. And when you look into it, it's interesting, you know. But I've never been one of those who like name dropping designers or like hunting. It's ridiculous, actually. I've always been saying, like, it's like with wine for me. I mean, not up till now, in comparison to how much wine I drink, how little I know. I mean,
Portugal. Yeah,
exactly.
definitely.
You should know more. And it's a little bit the same with me and clothing and fashion. I know the clothing, I see them, I get them, I combine them, I look a certain way, but I never really learn the names and stuff. I'm still confused with all the Dior and blah blah and blah blah.
Yeah. But and I think, I mean, but that it kind of speaks to like what fashion should be about, at least in the sense, like, you want to find your own expression, and maybe that's what's kind of central.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as an artist, I know that, of course, then what is one's identity? What is it I'm trying to express? Is that something you thought about in terms of like your music and even your live shows? Were you very keen on, this is the way I want it to look?
Yeah, well, actually, I have a bigger sister called Nana Cherry, and she was my. I wanted to look like her, basically. I was the little sister looking at this big star, and she was like, I mean, number one in. I mean, she put fashion. She was like, how do you call it when you create it? She created
She's a
style.
trendsetter.
She's a trendsetter.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I was watching her, and she was like, one I was following. But I did it here in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
She was of course big in the whole world, but
Yeah.
I did it here. So I kind of created a little bit of my own style, and you
But
know,
where did she live? Is
she grew up in New York and
Okay.
in Skåne.
And but have you been a lot in New York then?
Not very much.
No, not very
No.
much.
And then she moved to London. When she became a big star, she lived in London.
Okay.
So she was like my
She was
my
your
inspiration deeply.
inspiration.
But before that, it was of course ABBA.
Mm.
So I built my own like platform shoes with my little brothers, you know, playing klossar.
Nice.
And
And hey, that's sustainable. You know,
that's sustainable.
that's crafting fashion. So
Absolutely.
in line with the show.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
But I've always been interested in clothing and fashion. And my dad, he dressed, and my mother as well.
Mm.
They dressed very well. They were like progressive, kind of hippies, into music, blah blah blah. But they were kind of a little bit sophisticated. They
Mm.
were not totally wild. My dad, especially, he dressed like Miles Davis in a way, and
Mm. So like a
good-looking
suit
feller.
and yeah. And because it was something else that came up in my last conversation on the podcast. It was like I remember this memory of my grandma showing
Right.
me her clothes. And I think that's also, again, to just tie it into this idea of slow fashion. I don't think
Right.
we have that kind of pride
Yeah,
around our clothes today.
yeah,
And I think the previous generation, like they looked for that quality.
right.
And they wore that jacket for 30 years.
Yeah,
And I think like that's something I miss even in my own wardrobe. I'm like, where
right.
are my like items that I
Exactly.
really like curated over
Yeah,
time?
yeah.
But so did you have that experience with your parents then as well? Were they like showing you the way to quality? Like did
Not in no, maybe not in clothing and but you spoke about your mother and the food, and my mother was the same about the food. She was
yeah.
very healthy, and
Mm,
you know, so she showed me the way in how to eat.
yeah.
But the how to dress, no, not really. But I
Okay.
picked up a little bit of their style later on,
Mm.
much later on, way beyond my ABBA and all that kind of period of time. But now it's amazing to look at some of what they were wearing, and I had my dad's costume. What do you call it? A costume? What's that?
Or a
A
suit?
suit?
Yeah, yeah.
I had my dad's African suit on Elgalan before I had my second kid. I was
Mm.
still kind of slim, but that was about 8 years ago.
Mm.
So I was wearing his suit, and it was like perfect. It was just
And
nice.
when and African, I know your father's from Sierra Leone
Mm,
and a drummer from Sierra Leone,
mm.
and so like, am I seeing this colorful, amazing suit, or
It's just
what am I imagining?
he had it. It was like from the 60s, 70s. He had it, so he was wearing it on a lot of pictures, and it's like deep black blue, kind of with yellow, dark yellow monster.
I'll find
It's
you at
just
El Legoland,
beautiful.
and I'll figure it out. Because right now, but
But I
that's
felt so cool because
yeah,
no one had anything. You know, it was
remotely like it.
no,
And
no.
again, that's where the expression comes in.
Yeah,
And I think for me, for a long time, fashion, I just didn't really quite understand it. And then
right.
for me, my big like awakening to how fun it is
Yeah,
was actually going to, Burning Man, where
right.
it's extremely eccentric.
You've been to Burning Man.
I haven't been to the real deal, but I've
Cool.
been to the real deal.
All right.
But it was, during Corona, a
Yeah.
small group, we curated our own for 50 people.
Yeah.
But that's where
Wow.
I kind of just realized how cool it is to step outside of my comfort zone. And
Yeah.
like, I'm walking around with like blue watermelon shorts, a
Right.
white boa,
Right.
like a big gold chain and white pearls
Fantastic.
and like green shoes. And I'm like, I feel cool as hell. Like, and I was like, I get it now. Like, this is like a whole expression. Like,
Oh,
right now,
wow.
I'm this.
Yeah.
And I think I never really had that realization before. Before, I think I would have been very uncomfortable.
Right.
But in that kind of creation that we did together, it was
Yeah.
like, how do I express myself? And that was my expression. And it felt
Fantastic.
like, this is cool. And
Yeah.
I think before that, I felt kind of silly if I
Right.
went that extreme.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
and there, I was like, I was so inspired when I came back.
Yeah.
I remember I came
But you
back.
feel safe. You feel at
I
home. You
so-
feel,
yeah.
and it's exactly the same with all the Swedes going to New York.
Mm.
Like not
Yeah.
not
Oh,
very
yeah.
much now, but in the 90s,
Mm.
everybody went just to kind of have that feeling,
And get inspired and
get
feel
inspired
free.
and feel free. It was like,
Yeah.
and they came back to Stockholm and were like, oh, I want to hold on to this feeling.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, they're back to,
Yeah,
can
I
wear
can relate.
this?
Like my rebel
I
moment.
should put something on. Just going down to the store, I can't go down like
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. No, my rebel moment was when I came back to Stockholm.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. I
Yeah,
put the
yeah.
shorts on, I put the white bow on. I'm like, I'm going through Stureplan.
Yes,
And I was just, without a shirt on, I'm just like strolling in there, and everybody's like, who's
With
this guy?
confidence, with
Oh yeah,
confidence.
yeah. And I was like dancing by Kajen.
That's fantastic. Because if you would have done it with a little bit of less confidence, you wouldn't,
it wouldn't
have
have worked.
no.
It wouldn't have worked. Yeah, and I don't
You
think I
would
could
have-
do it today because I was so inspired by that moment. But I also really relate to that. You're talking about like New York, Sweden, because my dad is American.
Right.
So I mentioned my mother,
Cool. Yeah.
but my dad is also American, and so I got to kind of see that growing up that he didn't care
Right.
in the same way my mom had learned to care,
Right.
which is pros and cons. I
Yeah.
guess.
Good match.
Yeah, exactly. But it is different because here in Stockholm, I think we tend to be more conservative, and I think that's where your style, I think, also is something that Lars picked up on. Like I feel like you
Right.
have a very edgy style. You're looking to I
Fantastic.
don't know, express something beyond
Makes me-
like
makes me
Scandinavia.
very glad.
Yeah.
That's cool. And also, it's a bit of a funny coincidence that he mentioned my name about this stuff we're talking about, because I just got into selling clothes on like secondhand on the net. I never done that before, and I sold
Okay.
like really expensive Asadina Laya 2 outfits that I had 1990. They were like this tiny, like so small, and I no anorexia, not I was natural slim,
Yeah.
but still,
Yeah.
Jesus, so small. And
this
I
was all
s-
done on the slow fashion app. Wink,
Ex-
wink. Yeah, yeah.
This was all done on the slow
Yeah, it
fashion
totally
app.
was. It totally was. Yeah.
No, actually, I did it and I was like, yes, it went really quick, and I had got all this money, and it
Yeah.
was so. The best feeling was that I found the people that really dreamt about these, like collectors,
Yeah.
and that's so beautiful. They just wrote to me, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
Oh, that's
Like,
incredible.
That's
and like
amazing.
it wasn't through the slow fashion app. Let's be transparent here. But I think
This was
is
before you started.
It was before we started.
Yeah.
But I think that is the vision of slow fashion. Like
Right.
exactly what you're talking about there. It's like how can we provide those favorite items to people out there who can like, oh, thank you
Yeah.
for like blessing me with
Yes.
this. Like this
Instead of my daughter
Yeah.
looking at this year after year in this box in the cellar, thinking, what am I going to do with this stuff?
Yeah. and it's also like because there's so many like again it's a beautiful but ugly business because it of course it's about me I and then but it's also about expression and so there's something beautiful in it. But then the industry, like some of the facts, like 100 billion items of clothing are produced every year,
Yeah.
and you're just like like
Much are thrown away.
yeah. And so I'm
Like-
curious in terms of like sustainability and circularity. Like yes, you started doing some secondhand selling, but what else do you find? How is that conversation looking in your life in general?
Well, I think it's in my life, not as much as it should be. I'm doing the flying and stuff.
Yeah,
But I'm doing of course, putting all the stuff,
yeah,
glass and-
recycling,
which
yeah.
I'm shocked. There's so many friends of mine who's I mean, aware people, good people that
Mm.
still fucking throws
Everything
hard
in
plastic,
there.
you know, everything in the bin. It's like,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really,
Really.
really
Yeah.
embarrassing. But
Yeah.
I'm doing that, and I'm starting to now not throwing clothes, try to sell them anywhere, try to get them going to the next place, and also all those kind of obvious things that we do in life
Yeah.
now, and also my merchandise. I make sure that it's fabric made out of, you know, it's kind of
Yeah.
a
Sourced
circle
from
with,
good
yeah.
materials and all that. Yeah.
Um,
And I'm sorry if I was cutting you off there, but I was just curious if like we were talking about these change or behaviors in our personal lives, how they're very hard right before the show. And I think this is one of those things. It's just very hard. But the way to do it is to have the conversation, to point it
yeah,
out and be like, really?
yeah, and
Really? Come on.
should I take this plastic stuff home with me
Yes.
and
Yeah.
throw them in my
Yeah.
plastic? But
Yeah.
it's so easy. It's really
Mm.
easy to make those small changes. I mean, still, it really pisses so many people off that it's still more. It's more expensive to go by train than plane. I mean,
Yeah.
really, what do
And
you
it is crazy.
expect us to
Yeah.
go through this economical crisis and then
Yeah.
yes, let's pay more for the
Yeah.
train?
Yeah.
No,
It doesn't make any
it's.
sense.
I mean,
Yeah.
just you have to support us, no, like human
Yeah,
beings a little
help
bit
us
too.
make the right decisions, guys.
Exactly.
Like, help us.
Yeah.
Like, it takes less time, and okay, yeah, I'm hard. Yeah,
But
but
it's yeah.
leaving sustainability in fashion for a little bit. So, like you mentioned, your dad is from Sierra Leone, but your mom is Swedish, and you grew up in Solna.
Exactly.
Exactly. And when did like so I know he was a drummer, so you had that kind of, but where did music come into your life through your older sister? But like when did you yourself realize like I want to be an artist?
It was actually it was through my sister because
Yeah.
I went to London to hang out a little bit, and I took care of her eldest daughter, and she was just getting into music a bit serious by that time. So I was kind of inspired by her, and she heard me sometimes sing, like in the kitchen or something, just to myself. And she was like, "You have a beautiful voice. You should just." I was like, "Well, no, I don't know."
Yeah.
And then I came back to Sweden and got inspired. Got like London gave me that push of being a little bit more free, and I came home with like black shorts and Dr. Martens and
Yeah.
did my thing and started to sing in a band. And I was like, I think I was about 18 when I asked my dad if I could sing in his African High Life Orchestra. And he was so happy. He was like crying. Oh my God.
Nice.
Of course. And then I got like, because I was really bad in school. I had really hard time to concentrate and everything. So suddenly when I went out with my dad on tour, I had a job. He was like, "Oh, here's 500 under the table."
Yeah.
I admit. So
And
then
what age is this? Just to
it's
kind
like I was like 18,
18. Okay. Yeah.
and through him I got to know people that knew people like Orup. Do you remember Orup?
Yeah, absolutely.
The woman who was sorry, doing vocals for in my dad's group was asked to do Urup's first tour when he was like did the big hit. So and he wanted another like dark-skinned soully woman in his
Yes.
choir. So she asked
Oh Lord.
oh Lord.
Oh
hallelujah.
my.
So she said, "Would you be interested? Should I, mention your name?" And she did. And he was like, "Yeah, she can come. She can come and see me." Orup said. So I went to his apartment, and before I rang the bell, talking about fashion, I had my sneakers on because I was a hip hop girl.
Yeah.
But I changed. I switched to pink high-heeled pumps, high-heeled shoes instead. And then I rang on the bell,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Okay,
You got it. Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, so I went touring with him like 88 or something. And there I met the drummer that I started to work with, and so on and so on.
And then was in the 1990 you released your first album, right?
Exactly.
And
Yes.
Titiyo. Yeah.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, you were reflecting, you're like, what, 7 albums in all this time? How is that possible?
Right.
But I know because so often, like, music becomes that expression. It's almost like you find an emotion. You're like, oh wait, what is this? And then that becomes a song.
Exactly.
So it can often, and sometimes there's nothing there. Like, you don't know
Exactly.
what to create. You don't know what to share.
And that's a horrible feeling.
It
because
is.
when you have the same, because it's the same when you dress.
Mm.
You see something and you're like, oh, this is going to be my thing for the, I don't know how long, but for a while. And you get into that and blah, blah, blah. But when you don't see anything or feel anything that inspires you, then that's really confusing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's a uncomfortable feeling, because what am I? What am I into?
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same with music.
Yeah, and it requires, like, because when you're in that process too, like, once you find it, very often it's very intense. It's a lot comes at in one time, but it's also like you have to create that space for that thing to start happening. So it's weird, because like there can be a long period of doing nothing, but you still kind of have to sit down and do the work.
Exactly.
But so I'm curious a little bit, like, what is your creative process? Is it to like go to the studio and just be there for hours until something happens? Is it to sit at home and start writing on a lyric? Do they happen in your head? You sing it and then you write it down? Like, what is your creative process?
It starts to tick when there's space. So when I'm bored, or not bored, but when I have my quiet time, when I get it starts to I got space to create stuff. Otherwise, it's.
Yeah.
I had my second kid 8 years ago. No, sorry, 6 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah.
6 years ago, and I haven't.
And you're
released-
36, or?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I am.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I guess right. Yeah, good.
No, I'm 56 actually. So
shit.
yeah. So
Which is, I mean,
so
honestly extraordinary.
Thank
You
you.
look so great today.
on the outside, yes.
Yes.
I don't know.
Oh
what
damn!
the inside-
Really?
I
Really?
don't know. I can't talk about this. You never know. But thank you. But so I released my last album. I released 2015. So that's almost 10 years ago. And since I had a kid, met this fantastic guy, I've been so occupied in my head. There's no space. So not up until now, I've started, much more quietness, back to meditation, back to
Yes.
give my time back, close the door. No one.
Yeah, and breath work, we talked about that as
Breath
well.
work.
Yeah.
And really, then now I'm going to start on a new album.
So it's starting to cook.
It's starting to cook.
Hey.
Yeah.
No, that's very exciting.
But it's been, there's been years that I didn't have to come along. It took 8 years to release another album. And I was like, a couple of years, I was like, what am I going to do? I can't do music because there's no music coming out. And I was like desperate. And I started to work as a inköpare. What's that?
Like,
a web shop.
You're buying the inventory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the clothes. You go to like Vivian Westwood and you buy for the web shop.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I can work with this. And we went on one trip to Vivian Westwood. I was only shopping for myself. I was only writing down, I'm going to get this. Yes, I'm going to get this. And I was like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then what I realized afterwards, under this period of time when I was panicking about what am I going to do? There's no music coming up. It was, I was working. It was slowly. And in the end, I went to buy a really shitty synthesizer. I sat at home, pretended to be like a painter or something. Didn't think about the radio, nothing. I just created sounds.
Yeah.
And that became a record. So the whole period of time was a process. of
Nice.
course.
And was there also like this, because I can imagine just like success is scary in itself.
Mm.
And I can imagine after writing come along and it became like a big international success.
Mm.
Was there also a lot of fear and like, can I deliver the same again? Or was it mostly that it just, there was nothing cooking?
I was that thought was coming a bit later
Mm.
because we were working so hard after the album promoting it and stuff.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
was like, I was bleeding in my stem band and
Oh,
I had
wow.
no period. Blah blah. I was just
Yeah,
working really hard.
yeah.
So then there was 9/11.
Mm.
So everything was just a shutdown, of
Yeah,
course.
of course.
I got myself a horse. I took a drive license. I got a porch
Hey.
response. And I was listening to Dixie Chicks. That's what I
Nice.
did for like years.
Wow.
Just spending my money.
But feeling great.
Fantastic. Dancing line dance and blah, blah.
Mm.
So, but then slowly, it's like, okay. So the panic came a bit later. But there was a new album coming
Yeah.
out. So, yeah. But success, yeah, that's a rough thing to. It's fantastic, but it's stressful
Yeah.
because you have to stay up there.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, and you're like yeah,
so
exactly.
much
Once you're
nicer
up there,
to-
you're like, this is the normal, and now like normal is basically doing the
Exactly.
best I've ever done all the time.
Yeah.
But it's also levels, and I think that's
is.
that's what's so interesting about life too. You think it's this, but then it's this, and then it's this, and then it's that,
Exactly.
and
It's not only that.
bounce,
In
yeah.
No, I will never get higher than this. Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And
That's
again,
true.
and it takes that time. And again, even now we're talking about slow fashion circularity. It's this podcast. Why are we doing it?
Right.
It's literally in the hope that just one of you
Right.
download the app, and don't just download it, but you go on the app and then you actually upload a piece of clothing,
Right.
because it's like one step in that direction
Yeah.
that we need all over the world all the time.
Right.
And it is those very small movements that make things happen in the world and even in your own personal life.
Mm.
Drink a glass of water when you wake up,
Mm.
do the breath work,
Mm.
find the space where it's
Right.
quiet. And you have to actually think about it and then go create that in order for it to happen.
Yeah.
And
That's
of
the
course,
only work you have to do.
yeah. And it's hard
It's-
because life is hard, but it's also fantastic
Yeah.
and wonderful. So,
Yeah.
so
True.
I'm just curious here before we start rounding off. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners, whether it's from your life or whether it's circularity or fashion, just something that maybe inspired you during this talk that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Oh.
Ooh, it's always hard when you go wide because it's a swing and a miss or a jackpot. But
I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Can I then ask you this?
yeah.
If you're, and this is not to be like cheeky, but I think that like I'll start with like, how would you define what is cool? What is cool?
You're cool.
Hey, that was my line. That was my line. Come on. But what is cool?
Cool? I think cool is just cool when you're cool for real.
Yeah.
Not trying to be cool. When things are cool, cool is just cool. It's nothing you buy or can get or anything. You just have the guts to be cool.
Yeah.
To stay cool. I mean, because it's really about doing your own thing.
I was thinking about it on my way here. Here's my line. I was like, she's so
Yeah.
fucking cool. Like, I was just like looking at her, she's cool. Why is she so cool? So I was
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
That's
cool. We're
cool.
cool. Like, yeah.
But it's difficult to be like pure cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because we also have to, we have to make our fans happy. We have to make the producers happy. I mean, again, there's always
Absolutely.
these
Yeah.
things that are asked of us.
Yeah.
But how do we navigate that in our genuine, authentic way? Well, so if it comes to fashion, if it comes to circularity, if it comes to life, who would you recommend we have on the podcast here next
Oh yeah.
to talk about life, fashion,
Yes.
circularity?
Actually, I was thinking of first. I was thinking about one person. She's called Karin Rodebjer, and I love her work. She's through the years, she's always been delivering good stuff.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear her talk about, because she's such a good, what do you call it, arbetsledare.
Yeah,
She's
like she can lead a team.
fantastic.
Yeah, team
If
leader.
you go into Rockbjörn store, you feel that the people who's working there, they're working for her because they love her.
Ah,
And she's such a good pack leader
yeah,
in her
yeah,
work, in her job. And she's the one working hardest. I asked her, how can you do this without complaining? And she was like, why should I complain? It's my company, it's my name. I can't complain.
yeah.
I mean, really, that would be ridiculous. And she also said once that I'm trying to remind myself of, I stop judging people by what they say. I kind of go more after of what they do.
Yeah.
And it's like, also, when I hear people say stupid stuff, I think, well, they're just saying it.
Yeah.
They're not doing it, actually.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Mm.
So I was thinking about her, but now sitting here with you and this feeling and stuff, I saw this guy who's a musician and very gutsy and totally his own style. He's pretty young, beautiful, and he's called Christopher Gresula.
Christopher Gresela. Okay.
Christopher Gresula.
That's what
He's
a name.
fantastic. He's like
Yeah.
our own prince.
Okay.
He's playing the guitar.
Yeah. And powerful name, like Gresula.
Christopher
It's
Gresula.
like Count Dracula music, but in a positive way, like yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
No, he's so cool, and
Yeah.
he makes you curious.
Okay.
Especially, where do you get your guts from? I mean, you're gutsy.
Wow.
And very sweet.
Wonderful. Well, hey, this was a big pleasure. I had so much fun.
I had such a fun time. You should interview me all the time.
Yes, I will. and the Slow Fashion Talks
Yeah.
podcast is again here to talk about life, circularity, fashion, and maybe like we're picking up on a theme here that like we have to work on our behavior, try to be aware, and make small changes. So download the app, upload an item, and let's
Cool.
slowly move this circular fashion trend forward. Titiyo, thank you
Lovely.
so much.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.